Okay, well, we've only got 10 minutes, so I think we should all do pretty abbreviated council liaison reports, and we may not be able to wait more for Councillor Anderson. Council President Goodhouse, liaison reports. Brief.
I had last week I had virtual conference with the National League of Cities for the leadership. It was really good. We were pretty productive. Talked about the budget. Talked about what the NLC is doing with the new money. The Cities Are Essential campaign. More on that. So I could always follow up another time on that. They also passed a force of use policy as well. The board of directors, we approved that. So that went well. Just been meeting with the different committees and so forth. And also I got for Tigard Relay for Life, got to ask if the council or anyone from the city wanted to do a team. I think they're doing a virtual one. That's on July 11th. Other than that, that's just kind of a quick and short and brief.
Councillor Newton.
Yeah, just a couple of quick highlights. Had the annual budget meeting with the Metropolitan Area Cable Commission, and so that went smoothly. We only meet once or twice a year, so that's done. Tigard Youth Advisory Council is going to be conducting elections next Monday. As you know, their president was selected to be the next youth city councilor, and so they'll be having elections next week. And then I think they're looking forward to getting involved in the discussion on the school resource officer as part of the community discussion. So that's something they're looking forward to. Last week, Councillor Lube and I had a really good discussion with some community members along with Commander McDonald as one of the Spark sessions. That was good. We got a lot of good questions, and amazing how quickly the time goes. A lot of people called in, so that was good. And then Councillor Lube and I went on the student march a couple of weeks ago from Tualatin High to Tigard High with the Black Lives Matter student march, and it was good to be there with the students, the things they were talking about. So I was glad to have an opportunity to do that. And this morning, some of you may have also been on the call, I don't know, but I listened in on the hour-long session that described the training that our officers get from the Department of Police Standards and Training. So that was a good overview for me, and I appreciated the opportunity. So in a nutshell, that's what I have.
Okay. Councillor Lube.
Yeah, so we had a water board meeting that actually ended up being a pretty long meeting talking about the potential rate study and a couple of the things we wanted to see. And I believe that information comes to council here soon in the next couple of weeks. And so you'll get some really specific feedback and some recommendations. Library board, we have 2 new members who are starting in July, and I think we're voting on them next week. Excited to have them join us. And the library is working on how to slowly reopen and what that means. And with some staff members being and working at the library, they're actually working on this really cool system to get the holds out. So if you have books on hold, you're starting to get some information where you can pick a time slot and actually drive by the library to pick up your holds. So even though people aren't allowed into the building, they're working on ways to open up and service the community, which people are really excited about because they've been waiting for their books for months now. And that's all I have. And on top of the events that Councillor Newton talked about, which were, both of them were excellent.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Well, the Planning Commission has met finally. They did their first virtual meeting. They did an update on the Washington Square plan, and something that's going to apply to us. There was an annexation passed, 2 large properties on Bull Mountain that will probably be 11, 12, 13 maybe unit subdivision up there. And there was no opposition. So I think that's going to be pretty smooth, but some other stuff coming for the Planning Commission in the future, but that's it for me.
Where is that exactly on Bull Mountain, Councillor Anderson?
It's, it's down towards Rorschach Road, right before you turn on Bull Mountain. It's right there off to your right.
Okay.
So Two big properties, kind of by the Street of Dreams, if we remember where that was 5-6 years ago.
Got it. Okay. So I just want to let you all know that the conversation at the last WCCC meeting, the Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting, around emergency routes and all that is sort of continuing. There was that got a lot of airtime again, and bridge resiliency, et cetera. So I also want to report that the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium is meeting this Thursday, and we are trying to prepare for the special session that has been announced by Governor Brown. I think Representative Doherty will be talking about that this evening as well. I think we're going to need to be engaged, and one of the things that I'm thinking we need to prioritize is figuring out what our advocacy should be on some of the public safety changes, and at least the racial justice stuff, looking through the police and law enforcement lens. That they're going to be talking about lots of stuff really rapidly, and so we got to get our act together on the advocacy of that. I was also appointed to the executive committee of the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium. So just FYI, I'm now on the. Councilor Lube is clapping. Thank you. I also wanted to report just briefly that I've been having even more frequent conversations with our the Tigard Chamber of Commerce chair, CEO, sorry, as we're working through some of the stuff with Washington County, with the CARES money and a number of other topics. So I just wanted to let you know that we're having pretty regular conversations, like multiple times a week sometimes, which, we kept in regular contact, but we're in even more contact now. The last thing I want to report is that I did participate in a Black Lives Matter event last Friday evening. It was right on the border of King City and Tigard, and both Mayor Gibson and I both showed up and participated for the entire time. So it was really an interesting scenario, being at such a busy intersection. I would say 90 or 95% of the people that were interacting with the group were clearly supportive. There was a lot of, kind beeping and other things. There were, it was just very heartening to see how many people are, truly engaged and supportive of that work. So anyway, I'll just report that. Did I miss anybody on liaison reports? Okay, just to center us for the discussion tonight about racial justice, I'd like all of you to be thinking, we're again going to have a somewhat open-ended conversation, but City Manager Wine and I are going to do our best to try to listen and then work towards moving us all forward. I haven't gotten to tell the city manager this yet, but I had a kind of a vision for maybe trying to take all the information that I've heard, just because we don't have a structured plan from the council or a structured set of stuff. The staff are working on sort of an action plan, but I also think that that's very challenging. So I guess I just want to put out there that I may be willing to take what I've heard from the hundreds of people in the community, all of you, the staff, and working with the city manager, try to come up with I was going to call it like a proposed path forward, maybe. So anyway, I will just put that out there. If you guys think that's a bad idea or you have feedback, you can certainly let me know that during the regular session.
Can I ask a question regarding the Chamber of Commerce conversations you've been having?
Sure.
Have they asked us to take any sort of position on the letter that they signed with other Chamber of Commerces requesting that we break from the Tri-County that the governor has us with Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas, so our businesses can open into phase 2?
The chamber did not ask that. I know Council President Goodhouse had considered whether we should have a discussion about that. I didn't get the sense from the feedback that you had all provided a couple weeks ago that I thought that was going to probably change, but we could briefly discuss that. I mean, we're in a public session now, so if you think that we should be discussing that, let us know or let me know. The chamber did not make that request. I know you do, but does anyone else want to have that be a formal discussion? Okay. Mr. Nolup, you need the 10 minutes, correct? So we need to be done to calibrate?
That is correct, yes. You'll still be on the screen. No one will be able to see you or hear you on the public streaming app or Mac.
Okay, I will call this Tigard City Council business meeting to order and local contract review board to order. Roll call, please.
Councilor Anderson,
Here.
Mayor Snyder,
Here.
Council President Goodhouse,
Here.
Councilor Newton,
Here.
Councilor Lube,
Here.
Do we have Youth Councilor Turley?
I don't see her
Okay.
listed.
All right. We will move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please mute yourselves and participate on your own. And Mr. Nullett, please display the flag. Okay, thank you, Mr. Nullett. We're going to move on to, do staff or council members have any non-agenda items?
None from staff, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Public comment. Written public comments were due by 4:30 p.m. and calling questions will be taken via telephone for agenda items number 6 of the public hearing, adoption of the budget, and item number 8, legislative public hearing on amending Tigard Municipal Code, Chapter 2.46. You may call in to the following number. This is for the live broadcast. If anyone's wishing to speak tonight, they should call 503-966-4101 between 7:30 p.m. and the end of the public testimony period during each public hearing. So again, that number is 503-966-4101. City Manager Wine, do you have any follow-up to previous public comment? You're on mute, City Manager, sorry. I think she said no, but
Staff have no follow-up to previous public comment.
okay, thank you.
Did you hear that? Okay.
That was we heard it that time. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is used for routine items, including council meeting calendars, appointments to boards and committees, and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements. Information on each item is available on the city's website in the packet for this meeting. These items may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Council members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Tonight, we are approving minutes from 4 different city council meetings. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, this
Councilor Newton.
Yeah, I sent a couple of corrections into the city recorder for the April 21st minutes. On page 12 in the last paragraph, instead of reading residents scan, it should read residents can. And on page 16, in reference to the virtual bingo game I talked about, although I was invited, I in fact did not attend. So I just make those 2 comments on the April 21st minutes, which I sent over to the city manager yesterday.
Oh,
Okay.
Councilor Newton, those changes have been made.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're considering them with those changes already having been made, city
Yes.
recorder? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Is there a motion?
Councilor Newton, I move for approval of the consent agenda with the amendments made by the city recorder.
Councilor Lube, I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. City recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilor Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda is adopted unanimously. And without further ado, we have a guest on the line. The next item on the agenda is to award the prize for the 2020 If I Were Mayor Student Contest. And we have Maeve Keast in attendance. Maeve, do you want to briefly say hi to the community and to the council?
Hi.
Just say hi.
And you're a fifth grader at Templeton Elementary, correct?
Yes.
So I want to congratulate you on winning the contest. We've actually sent your submission on to the statewide contest. Those will be judged, and actually I think I'm on the panel to judge them this year. So I may be kind of partial, though I'm only one of a number of mayors that are on that group. But I want to congratulate you, and you want I believe, a gift card. And normally if we were in person, I'd be giving you a City of Tigard pin, just like I have on my lapel here. And we'll make sure that we get one of those sent to you as well. City Manager Wine, can you make sure that gets sent along with the winning prize, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So, Maeve, I want to congratulate you and thank you on behalf of the city for participating. And I'm very excited that we're going to be well represented at the statewide contest. So, thank you and congratulations.
You're welcome. Thanks.
It was a
Good
great
job, Maeve.
Dave, I really liked it, and I love the maps on the wall behind. The maps
Oh,
for-
yeah. I got them for Christmas 2 years ago, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for participating this evening and for participating in the contest. Congratulations.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thanks, Maeve.
You're welcome.
All right, we're proud of you. We'll be rooting for you. And I'll be trying to actively manipulate the judging. Okay. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is to receive a legislative session summary from Representative Doherty. I have a feeling that we're going to be discussing more than just that, given that a special session has just been called. Representative Doherty, are you present?
Yes, I am. I mean, I can see myself. I don't know if you can.
We can.
Okay, good. Well, anyway, first of all, thank you very much for giving the opportunity to give an update. And what I'm going to do is talk about the 2020 session, which should take about 47 seconds, and then talk about the special session we have tomorrow. In February of 2020, we gavelled in for a 35-day session, and there were about 250 pieces of legislation that we were dealing with, everything from the funding of rural schools to the Eastern Oregon Border Commission to the dealing with funding of schools and so on and so forth. And about a week and a half, 2 weeks into the session, my colleagues on the other side did not like that we were again dealing with cap and trade, so they left. And in the session in 19, it was the Senate that left, and on this time it was both. So every day we went in, and in Oregon we've got something very unusual because we're one of the few states that you have to have 2/3 of your members on the floor. That is a quorum. It's just not 50% plus one. And so we never had enough people to gavel in. So of the 250 bills, 3 of them passed. One of them was to get Damascus out of the North Clackamas Park system. The second one was House Bill 4140, which actually was brought to us by Representative Neron. And we have protocols for students that have concussions and how they can't play sports and so on. But we never really have that much training as to what do we do with kids that have had concussions in the classroom. In other words, are the lights too bright? Do they have to wear sunglasses and so on? And so that bill did pass. And so there will be a protocol and some training on that. And the third one was actually a bill that I had sponsored. It was just very exciting, 4061, which was raising the price of the cultural trust plates. So more money went to the Oregon Cultural Trust. And that was it. We stayed for most of the sessions, hoping that people would come in. But there were a lot of issues that were not dealt with. So it was not a very productive session at all. And then what we did is the governor called a special session to deal with some of, well, and this would be for COVID. And so we got out the first week of March, and it wasn't until the middle of March that the COVID situation started to blow up. So in the meantime, there were a lot of issues that we needed to deal with. One of them was the federal government money that we were getting. What do we do with some of the things with schools and so on? So the governor called a special session, which will go in tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock and deal with, and I think that I sent it to the city manager. You may have a list of all of the issues that has gone through committee so far. And there's one committee, and it's a joint committee on the first special session, and they have been dealing with all of this. And so they've been meeting virtually and have talked about some of the issues and the problems in the concepts that were presented here. Probably one of the bigger things that we'll be dealing with is a police accountability. And about half of these actually were presented last session and were passed in the Senate, were on their way to being passed in the House. And then my colleagues walked, and so we weren't able to go through and deal with it. But what it is basically going through and talking about use of force, whether it's tear gas or whatever, or chokeholds or whatever. So it's a use of force, it's disciplining of police officers, especially with the idea that you get disciplined and terminated from one jurisdiction, and then you move to another jurisdiction. So actually the committee that worked on this worked with a lot of the stakeholders. And so they worked with police, they worked with the Department of Public Safety, which trains police officers, and came up with a lot of the issues here. And as Representative Bynum from Happy Valley said, is that some of them we still want to talk to stakeholders, because what we want is a policy statewide that is workable and is one that both sides can use and work on. So that's one of the things that was all kind of grouped into it. On the piece of paper that you got, it not only had the concepts, but over on the right it has LC, which is a legislative concept, and then most of those have been assigned House bills. So what I encourage people to do is to go on a system called OLIS, O-L-I-S. That's an Oregon Legislative Information System. And if you go to the 2019 or 2019-2020 interim session, that will get us to the information that we have here. That's every bill in total. It has got summaries. It has got everything else you need. It will also have calendars as to when the joint committee is meeting. So I highly suggest that you go there, because I'm not on the committee, so I'm not real super familiar with everything here and have not had the chance to read it all through. So any questions on the police accountability or?
So Representative Doherty, I think we're still, trying to, did you hear, you probably didn't hear my statement earlier. Let me just make it clear that we are actively trying to sort of take the hundreds of pieces of information that we've gotten back from the community, the ideas that we have and concerns from the council, and really from all over the place. I would anticipate that you'll be getting some very direct advocacy from us on a number of these topics, and perhaps even ones that aren't on the list as well, or that maybe should be considered as part of these legislative concepts. Right. So I hope you're open to that.
Oh, sure, because actually a lot of the things that are here, you guys already do. And so it's more just kind of had on the state level. The next section that we had was kind of a following up on the Joint Committee on Corona Response. And what this was dealing with some of the issues that were done in the March executive order, everything that dealt with commercial evictions, moratorium, residential evictions, foreclosures, all of those sort of things that were in the executive order that need to either be expanded date-wise, which is something that we have to do, or go through and deal with some of the issues and concerns that they had. And again, they've been working with both parties, all the stakeholders, to try to go through and deal with what some of the concerns are. The one that is probably of concern to your immediate group is number 15, which is public meetings on local government operations. And again, that was in the executive order. And it just means that it will allow you to continue to have meetings virtually and that kind of thing. And so that's what it was. Authorizes reasonable, doing this. And it also authorizes, there are some jurisdictions that are so small, they don't have the ability to put it online like you do, or have it on Facebook, or have it recorded, do all of these kind of things. And so there is a small expenditure of money for those jurisdictions that need financial resources to get to the point that you guys are for meetings. And so that was one of those, at least, that was directly affected you. One thing, and I'm going to go back to the 20th session because there were two things that I forgot to mention. One was there were two bills that were that were important to the city of Tigard and the Tigard area. Both of them were on their way to being passed by the Ways and Means Committee. The Ways and Means Committee was going to fund the $1 million study for Pacific Highway, and they also were going to grant Broadway Rose Theater $250,000 to finish the completion of their capital project. And all of the Ways and Means issues died, on the road. They just died. The last group that we have here deal with economic recovery and other needs, and this is everything from what I mentioned before. Some of this is left over from last session of funding for the small schools, which will run out on the 30th. Things like out-of-state placement for foster kids is an issue that they've had, and so they're going to be dealing with that. There's a fix that we need to do on the Student Success Act. So anyway, so that's kind of, in a nutshell, the different things that we will begin to deal with when we gavel in tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning.
So Representative Doherty, on the, I see that you've got police accountability on here. One of the things that I guess I want to broaden the thoughts about a little bit are, and I'm surprised that action hasn't already been taken on this, but it really does have a nexus to, I think, the racial justice and community conversations that we're having. But is anyone going to introduce some legislation that would sort of commute the sentences and or remove and release everyone that's in custody right now for activities with marijuana that if they did today would no longer be illegal?
I know that there's been talk about this before. I think, the idea of just getting our prisons down, a lot of those have already been commuted, whether it's been in a state law that everyone that had a marijuana conviction or whatever is gone, but a lot of those had already been commuted before, is my understanding. There's no specific talk about that issue.
I just think that it's those kinds of things that incrementally added up. And it's just one thing that I think we could all agree that if something wouldn't be illegal now, someone shouldn't be in jail for it from the past.
I don't think you're going to get any argument from people. And that's why I say a lot of people have already been, their sentences have been commuted because of, they were all basic on marijuana charges, selling or distributing, something like that, when it was not legal. So there's no specific talk about this here because, as I say, this special session is not going to go 35 days. We're hoping to get it done in 2 with the possibility of 3. And the committee is still meeting because we're gaveling in, so everything's official at 8 o'clock in the morning. And how we're going to gavel in, we can't all be on the floor at the same time, yet it is against our Constitution to have, something virtual to vote from away from the actual physical floor of the House. So there are some people that will probably want to sit there the whole time. And so if you've got 10 people there, only about 5 people can go in at a time and vote. And so we'll be going in on shifts and votes. And so we're not going to have the 30 seconds we have to vote. It's going to be done in shifts, but we have to go down and actually push our button. And so we'll do that. I know at 10 o'clock that committee's meeting to go through again more of the legislation. That will be coming out very fast because we have to revise the rules so we don't have it like 2 or 3 hour waiting period. We can get legislation out real fast. And then the plan is to work to actually go on the floor to vote, or as much as we can go out on the floor at 5 o'clock. And then we gavel in again the next morning at 8 o'clock. So
Thank you, Representative Doherty. Other feedback or comments on the substance? Otherwise, we have what was supposed to be a surprise, but I doubt is a surprise anymore. But actual comments, substantive comments or questions for Representative Doherty?
Okay, what I'll do is, if there are no questions, I will make sure that if you have questions along the way, let me know, and we'll also get a summary of what it is. But if you're interested in any specifics of the legislation or actually look at the bill, go on OLIS. It's a great system and very, very easy to maneuver. I can maneuver it, so anybody can maneuver it. So.
Thank you.
Representative Doherty, I want to take a moment to, we have been planning, and I think this is the third or fourth time we've tried to reschedule this, what was supposed to originally be a surprise for you, of us recognizing you with a resolution that we are going to act on tonight. And so I'm not, you have done so many things for the city of Tigard and the residents of Tigard over the years that I'm actually not going to read the entire resolution because it is very thorough. But I do want to hit some highlights, and in particular, you served the district, I think, for 11 years, correct?
Yes, it'll be 11 years when I leave.
Yeah, when you're done. You have been, what I think is unique, particularly, at least from my perspective, is you don't just talk the talk. When you're an advocate for education, you're like down at the elementary school, like serving food. And not just once, but like every time I go there. And I guess I want to make sure that our community knows what an asset you have been to our community over the long term in so many ways that many people will never fully understand or appreciate. And so I do want to act on this resolution, and then perhaps any members of council that want to recognize you can, and then there will also be a gift arriving at your door tomorrow. So I know,
I won't be home. Well,
I know
really
arrangements have been made about that.
You know what gift that I'm getting tomorrow? I'm getting actually my water tested vial is going to be left on my front door tomorrow.
Lovely.
But thank you so much. It is truly an honor to represent this community, because it is a phenomenal community. I brag about it all the time.
So let's have a councilor move and second the resolution, and then anyone that wants to speak can speak.
Councilor Newton, I move approval of the resolution honoring Margaret Doherty for her service to our community.
Councilor Anderson will second that.
I second that.
Okay, you got lots of seconds there, Margaret.
Thank you.
All right, City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 20-35, a resolution thanking Margaret Doherty for 11 years of service as state representative for the city of Tigard and residents from Oregon House District 35.
City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Absolutely.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councilor Newton.
Enthusiastically.
And Councilor Lube.
Yes, very big yes.
Okay, with enthusiastically, lots of big yeses, resolution number 20-35 is adopted unanimously. And would any members of council like to address Representative Doherty?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Newton, and as a staff person, I worked a lot with Representative Doherty, and a couple of things that I thought I learned a lot from her, and a couple of things that I thought were so great. When we went down, Mayor Cook and I went down to talk to Representative Doherty about the funding that we wanted the state to provide for the Hunziker Core project. Mm-hmm. At first, I thought she wasn't going to be supportive, but she did what she usually does and made us sell it to her. And then she turned around and was in everybody's face. So, and then when she was working with the kids at the library that were, got community service from Peer Court or whatever, she really had those kids back, but she was on their back. She had high expectations of those students, and they delivered. And so I just smile when I think about somebody down on at the legislature who thinks she's going to go away, because she doesn't. And she was a true advocate for our community, and I learned a lot from her about, hanging in there, and for something that you truly believe in, hang in there and advocate and don't give up and articulate the need and push for it, and you can be successful. So I appreciate that about you. I also learned a lot attending all your town halls as a staff member, and I appreciated your straightforward responses to constituents' questions, even when you could tell as you were speaking they did not like what you were saying, but you answered honestly and with respect. So thank you very much to our service, for your service to our community, and I know we will see you around.
Oh, thank you, Liz, very much. I'm not going to go away.
And that would be off-brand for you to go away, Representative Doherty.
No, I'm not going to go away.
All right. Any other members of council?
I just want to say, Representative Doherty, as somebody who is fairly new to this community, you are incredibly welcoming, and you have just been a shining example of what leaders in this community are. And I want to thank you for all the work that you've done for Tigard and your support and advocacy for us.
Thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure.
Council President Goodhouse?
I just wanted to echo what's being said. You do a lot for the community. There's a lot of things that people don't know. You're a lot of places. I constantly bumping into you around town, but you're at a lot of events. You help out a lot. You helped out on the recent safety levy, and that was much appreciated as well, with their support and help with that as well for our officers. And so I just want to thank you for all the help that's visible and also that people don't know about.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Council President.
Yeah, like you served on our planning commission for a while, right?
Yes, for 8 years.
And the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Task Force, I think, too.
Yeah. I was there with Councilor Anderson. We went in the same year. In fact, the same day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to have somebody from Tigard down at the state rep, but it was more than that, because you understood the city, the ins and outs, and you could push back when you needed to. So it's just you did a great service to us. We very appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the work you guys put in. So anyway.
Well, right. Representative Doherty, thank you again. And we are excited that we passed the resolution. And have you seen it?
No.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Would you like me to go into the website?
Well, it makes that makes me want to read it to you.
Well, if you don't have time, I can go through, because I get embarrassed on things like that. I don't.
Oh, you don't
very often.
You don't want it. You don't want it read.
You can do whatever you want to do, Mayor.
I'll respect your wishes. We'll move on. Thank you very much. And I know it's not the last of us seeing you. So.
Oh no. Okay. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
That's a good thing. All right.
Thanks, Mario.
We'll move on to our next agenda item: informational public hearing, adoption of the budget, making appropriations, declaring the ad valorem tax levy, and classifying the levy as provided. I am going to open the public hearing. Anyone that wants to offer testimony will be allowed to do so. Written comments were due at 4:30 p.m. today, and those wishing to testify by telephone should be calling in to 503-966-4101 to be put into the queue. And we did receive some written testimony. I want to direct the council to make sure that they received that written testimony. Did anyone not receive the written testimony?
Mr. Mayor, I haven't seen anything, but I've been having some technology challenges. So if along the way somebody could summarize that, that would be great.
All right. We have three, we'll do that now. There were 3 different items. One was, or 3 different individuals that wrote in. One wanted to, they want to know what the plan is to update the budget to include body cameras for police. A second one was a letter that was just wanting to know and suggesting that the budget be adjusted to address systemic racism and police brutality. And then there was an attached list of issues. And then a third comment was about divesting police departments, including SROs, and investing in community solutions for food insecurity, housing instability, mental health professionals, and affordable housing. So those are summaries.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to the staff report, Mr. LaFrance and Mr. Kane.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Toby LaFrance, Finance and Information Services Director. Give me a moment here while I have a brief presentation this evening. Give me a moment while I bring that up, please. Okay, this is a continuation of the hearing from June 16th last week, where Council considered the budget as approved by the Budget Committee. Since this is a continuation, I won't restate all the background on the budget process that we covered last week. At that hearing, Council considered the budget as approved by the Budget Committee. Council agreed to move forward with 3 technical adjustments that were proposed by staff and did not have any further adjustments to the budget. One of the 3 adjustments that Council agreed to triggered the need to continue the hearing so that Tigard can comply with the Oregon budget law to notice this change to the budget. The 3 changes that Council agreed to are adding the COLA as set for our SEI union under their contract and for the non-represented staff. Currently, our police union and the city are in negotiations, and so any COLA for them is not included in the cost of COLA as put forward for the budget. Secondly, a change in the community event grants as recommended by a subcommittee of the Budget Committee. This is due to events being canceled due to COVID, and those funds that would have been used for those events has been recommended to move forward into fiscal year 22. This is shown and represented in the resolution that's before you this evening. And thirdly is the creation of the police levy fund. This is a zero net change to the budget. It's simply moving budget that in the approved, moving expenditures and revenues associated with the levy that in the approved budget was placed in the general fund. And what staff is recommending is that we create a new special revenue fund for the police levy. So under Oregon budget law, Council needs to go through this extra step if we want to change the budget that was approved by the Budget Committee by more than 10% in any fund. Since this is a new fund with an approved budget of $0, creating any amount would exceed any dollar amount would exceed the 10% limit. So since Council agreed to create this new fund, staff has published a new state-required budget form on the city's website. That form includes the 3 changes that council has made, including the new fund, which was the legal trigger for this continuance. In addition, staff has also posted a memo from me to mayor and council from June 11th that explained the 3 changes, Oregon budget law, and the need for the continuation. And lastly, we also posted the table that summarizes the budget as approved, the 2 technical adjustments that impact the budget as approved, and the recommended adopted budget. Before you this evening is a resolution that will adopt the budget as approved with these 3 changes. Staff is recommending the adoption of the budget as presented in tonight's agenda. And that concludes the presentation from staff, and I'm available for any questions.
I think that's a summary of everything that we had asked for last week. So I'm gonna take us straight to testimony, and then if there is more deliberation and or questions from council, we can do that in a moment. So we received the written testimony that I described a few moments ago. Mr. Nolup, do we have any callers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, we do not have any callers.
Okay. We will remind the public one more time that and you've got about a minute or 2 to make this phone call now, 503-966-4101 is the number if someone wants to make comment. And we will move on. Well, I guess I've got to keep the public hearing open. So technically, did I hear or see that new youth counselor Calderon is on the line? I guess he's.
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Did you? I think we can consider you a member of the public since it's not July 1 yet. So, do you want to comment on the budget?
I'm okay for now. I would advise the council to look into the possibility of body cameras for the police. I don't know enough about that to give my official opinion, but I think that body cameras would be useful, especially given recent events and especially when having accountability for police officers.
Okay. Thank you. Any other things you want to add on this?
No, thank you. That's
okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Nolup, do we have any? Did I drum up any additional callers?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, still no additional callers.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Council discussion and consideration of resolution 20-36. Councilor Lube.
I know that the body cameras has been in discussion and the amount has changed a little bit with the passage of the police levy and having those additional support services. Do we have a number of what it would cost, or is that still in process?
Mr. Mayor and Council, it's still in process. Our hope is that we'll be able to get that to Council soon, but nothing for tonight. And I think we're also exploring the possibility of whether federal grants or, other funding sources might be able to support that.
Perfect, thank you. The only other thing I would say is that, we've received robust public comment over the last several weeks, And as discussed, we need to pass this budget by the end of June in order to be functional in July. And we're hearing you and we're listening to you, and we want to make sure that we're making these changes in a very meaningful way and having an important community dialogue about what we want everything to look like. And the council is committed to having continuing budget discussions and making changes throughout the year that's necessary. So please don't see this vote tonight as shutting the door. The door is still very much open. This is a procedural item for us to continue to move forward and to have these meaningful conversations and these changes that our community members are asking for.
Councillor Lube, on that point, I would be so bold as to say that we as a council, unless people feel differently, should be directing staff that in the first quarter budget supplemental, we expect to see a plan to implement body cameras.
Yes, I would also agree to that.
Does anyone on the council object to that? Or is there at least one other person who agrees?
Are you saying to do it or have a discussion about it? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Bring us a proposal.
Yeah.
What's on that?
Yeah, proposal, and have the chief present it to us as well, so.
Councillor Newton?
I'm sorry. I support moving forward with that as well. I know
Okay.
the police is in support of it, and so, but I think we need to do it thoughtfully and make sure we have the right dollar amount. So yeah, I support moving forward with that as quickly as we can.
Okay. Councillor Lube, anything else? Sorry, I kind of interrupted you there.
No, nothing further from me.
Okay, Council President Goodhouse.
I don't have any questions. I was just going to move for approval of resolution number 20-36.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I assume there's still further discussion potentially. Councillor Newton, discussion?
Yeah, just a couple of points. I concur with what Councillor Lube had to say in terms of reminding the community that we have heard from a lot of folks on these important issues. We are listening. We do want to move forward and fund some of these things and make changes that the community desires, and we will fund those in the coming days as appropriate. And I believe last week when we discussed the budget, the council committed to a half-day session, probably in October, to talk about where we are with the budget and things that we might want to fund moving forward. So this is an initial discussion on the budget, action that is needed so we can provide services beginning July 1st, but encourage the community to continue to talk to us. We are listening. We want to hear from you, and appreciate you taking the time to communicate with us. But yeah, I'm in support of the resolution. Thank you.
And I agree with those comments that when we were working on this budget proposal and working on it, we didn't have a lot of community feedback. And so we love that there's a lot of people writing in and so forth, and we hope that it continues, and we will do in a quarter take a look at it and expect that people will show up and have a lot more input on it, because it helps the city run better when citizens are involved in the budget and understand where the money goes and have a say where they want to see the city dollars go.
Councillor Anderson?
No, good job by the finance department. No other questions. We saw this last week, so I'm good with it.
Okay, it's been moved. The resolution's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Council, if I can interrupt really quick, I lost track if you closed the public hearing or not. I apologize. I just wanted to double check that.
I did. I knocked on my wood table.
Okay, thank you. I apologize.
I could do it again.
Perfect.
Public hearing is closed a second time. Okay, City Recorder.
Resolution number 20-36, a resolution of the City of Tigard adopting the approved budget with adjustments, making appropriations, declaring the ad valorem tax levy, and classifying the levy as provided by ORS 310-0602 for fiscal year 2021.
City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilor Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 20-36 is adopted unanimously. Thank you, staff. This is the culmination of a ton of work. Thank you very much on behalf of the council and all the citizens at Tigard. And yes, citizens, we know we've got a lot more budget work to do in the first quarter of the fiscal year than we normally do. So we acknowledge that and we're committed to doing it. Item number 7 on the agenda is to consider a resolution of support for Transportation Growth Management Grant. Mr. Bemis.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Mr. Nolip, I do have a presentation to accompany, PowerPoint presentation to accompany my presentation. Could you please pull that up? Perfect, thank you. So hi, my name is Dylan Bemis, Economic Development Coordinator for the City of Tigard, and tonight I'm asking you to consider a resolution of support for a Transportation and Growth Management, or Tgm Planning Grant from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD, and Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT. This grant would fund integrated land use and transportation planning in downtown Tigard. Next slide, please. So the red circle in this slide indicates the extent of the study area for this grant project. Tgm Planning Grants are offered annually by DLCD and ODOT, and a council resolution of support for the project objectives is required with the grant application. The goals of Tgm grant funding really closely align with many city goals and policies, including helping local jurisdictions develop plans and implement measures that encourage livable, affordable, and accessible communities for all ages and incomes, and promote compact, mixed-use, walkable development to increase walking, biking, and transit. If awarded funding, this TGM grant project would help plan for amendments to the mixed-use central business district's zoning and development standards in order to encourage densification and help streamline development in the downtown Tigard district, explore rezoning industrial land adjacent to the proposed Hall Boulevard light rail station in order to accommodate transit-oriented development that could potentially be catalyzed by the arrival of light rail via the Southwest Corridor project, and develop a multimodal corridor plan for Hall Boulevard and evaluate tools to shift trips from single occupancy vehicles to walking, cycling, and transit trips within downtown Tigard. As noted in the agenda item summary, this project supports numerous council goals, policies, and master plans. And community development staff are seeking to apply for approximately $250,000 in TGM grant funding. I understand Councilor Newton asked about the funding match requirement for the grant. There is a 12% minimum match, but this would be fulfilled with staff time, which is allowed by the grant. With this resolution, staff is recommending that council approve submittal of an application for a 2020 TGM planning grant from DLCD and ODOT. With that, I thank you for your time and open to any questions the councilors or mayor may have.
All right, any questions or a motion?
Councilor Lube, I move to approve resolution number 20-37.
Council President Goodhouse, second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 20-37, a resolution of support for a Transportation and Growth Management Planning Grant from the Department of Land Conservation and Development and Oregon Department of Transportation to conduct an integrated land use and transportation planning in support of the Strategic Plan, City Center Urban Renewal Plan, and Transportation System Plan.
City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilor Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Nugent,
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 20-37 is adopted unanimously. We'll move on to item number 8 on the agenda, which is a legislative public hearing to consider an ordinance amending Tigard Municipal Code Chapter 2.46 regarding the Local Contract Review Board. I will open the public hearing. City Attorney, take note. Hearing procedures. Anyone that wants to have provided written comments, they were due by 4:30 p.m. today. I don't believe we received any. City Recorder, can you confirm that?
That's correct. Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, we received no comment.
All right. This is again an opportunity to testify by calling phone number 503-966-4101 and being put in the queue for public testimony. I want to again remind the public 503-966-4101. City Attorney, staff report, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. The proposed changes to Tigard Municipal Code 2.46 really fit into two categories. One is deleting sections that duplicate already existing provisions in state law, and the other is moving a significant amount of the content from the municipal code into the city's public contracting rules, or PCRs. There are other scattered housekeeping changes throughout the document. So on the first part, the sections redundant with state law. The definitions in 2.46020 are largely covered by the public contracting code. And then many of the provisions in 2.46060 through 090 are already addressed through public meetings laws. And so generally, we like to avoid redundant sections between code and state law. This enables us to be more flexible when the state law changes, and also, like we just realized with the COVID emergency, it presents a risk of the city's code being out of date or in conflict with state law if the state law is either changed or interpreted differently, like with Governor Brown's executive order. So in this case, her executive order stated that whenever possible, that local governments were supposed to meet virtually for public health reasons, and that the city was not obligated to hold in-person meetings at that time. So this potentially created a problem if we were to approve a contract during one of those virtual meetings, because our contracting code says that the board has to meet either in person, or if it meets virtually, it has to provide a location at the city for public to testify. And so because we were directed by the governor to not do that, our code was in direct conflict with the executive order. So because state law already governs in these situations, it already provides for public meetings and open meetings for public participation, it's best to just avoid the duplication and to rely solely on state law. So those are your first major changes. The second major changes are related to the second item, the next item on your agenda that you'll hear tonight regarding public contracting, which is the public contracting rules. So in reviewing these with the city's contracting and purchasing manager, we realized that a lot of these are too detailed for the code and are much more better suited for the rules, which are the more appropriate place for the details. They're also more flexible to change because they're adopted by resolution instead of ordinance. This is consistent with a lot of other cities and local governments that have their specifications in rules. So the content is there, it's just being removed from the ordinance and placed in the rules. So those are the two main changes tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions of the city attorney? Not deliberation or discussion, but questions. Okay, Mr. Nolep, do we have any public testimony? Any callers?
Mr. Mayor, At this time, we do not have any callers.
All right, we'll give it another 20 seconds and then close the public hearing. Mr. Nulla, please intervene if we get a caller.
Will do.
All right, I'm hearing none. We will close the public hearing. Council discussion and consideration. Ordinance 20-06 or a motion.
Council President Goodhouse, I move to approve ordinance number 20-06.
Councillor Newton, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the ordinance.
Ordinance number 20-06, an ordinance amending Tigard Municipal Code, Chapter 2.46, regarding the Local Contract Review Board.
City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councillor Newton.
Yes.
And Councillor Lube.
Yes.
All right. Ordinance 20-06 is adopted unanimously. Thank you. We are now going to convene as the Local Contract Review Board for the next agenda item. So please note that. So item number 9 on the agenda is Local Contract Review Board. Consider revisions to the city's public contracting rules. Manager Moody. Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Schneider and councilors. Christine Moody, Contracts and Purchasing Manager. As you just heard from the City Attorney Rahala, moving the contracting regulations from the Tigard Municipal Code to the Public Contracting Code makes sense. In addition, we are asking council for the increase in delegated authority to the city manager into $250,000. The current $100,000 threshold has been in place since 2011. Contracts up to $250,000 in the current economic environment can be considered relatively small, and this will also allow us for quicker execution of contracts and allow for projects to get underway a lot quicker. The PCRs, also another major change in there is that they will now include the process for alternative delivery of methods of construction. And this is also a timely piece as we have some major projects coming forward, just like the cash reservoir. So we will be able to use these provisions in the coming months. So with this, staff is recommending the adoption of the resolution and the changes to the PCRs.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff? Or a motion?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Newton, I just heard Manager Moody, you explained that the interest in increasing the authority from 100,000 to 250,000 was to make it more easier to move quickly on contracts. So a couple of questions. Number one, I assume we have a lot more contracts that are considered routine that would now be able to be approved administratively and not have to go to council. And the other thing I wondered about was in the agenda item summary, we talked about some larger organizations that have increased purchasing authority, but not some of our nearby neighbors. Are they also, like Oswego, Tualatin, Beaverton, TTSD, do they also have a higher purchasing authority than Tigard, or do you know? Those are
yes, Councillor Newton, thank you for giving those questions yesterday. So I was able to do a little bit of research. And Lake Oswego is at $250,000, so we are comparable. Tualatin is at 150, TTSD is at 150, and Beaverton is still at 100,000.
Thanks for getting back to me on that. And also, my first question
on Beaverton, hold on, let's clarify. Who is that for?
That's
for the mayor?
No, that's for what contract's going to city council for approval.
No, I know, but who would have the signing authority? The mayor? Because they don't have a city manager.
I'm not sure who they've delegated the authority to. It could be
Okay.
anyone. It's whether they're going to the LCRB or not. So anything over $100,000 still goes to LCRB. They've delegated under that to, I'm not sure. It could be anybody.
To somebody. Okay.
Yes.
Just to follow up on my first question, so your take as the person who reviews most of the contracts and that go through is that you're seeing a lot more routine, what I would call routine contracts that are between 100,000 and 250,000 going to council that you don't believe, as the purchasing manager, really need to eye council on them because they're fairly routine. It's just that costs have gone up, and so it's your professional opinion that there's a lot of routine contracts that are that level that probably wouldn't really necessitate having the eye of council. Is that a correct statement? Thank you.
That is a correct statement, Counselor. And it's also that, yeah, because of the economic environment, anything that's a major project is going to be over $250,000, and that's going to be coming to the LCRB for review and approval.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or a motion?
Council President Goodhouse, I move to approve LCRB resolution number 20-01.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, read the number and title of the resolution.
LCRB Resolution 20-01. A resolution amending the City of Tigard public contracting rules.
City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
LCRB Member Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Snyder,
Yes.
Member Goodhouse,
Yes.
Member Newton,
Yes.
Member Lube.
Yes.
All right, LCRB Resolution 20-01 is adopted unanimously by the local contract review board.
As a host. Call in host. Show recording is on.
Sorry,
All
Mr.
right.
Mayor,
Is
that
now
was
exiting.
our call-in service. Our call-in service exiting the meeting. Sorry about that.
So we will reconvene now as the Tigard City Council for the remainder of the meeting. The next item on the agenda is a consider resolution extending the emergency declaration. City Attorney Rahala, staff report, please.
Good evening again, Council. This request is your third extension of the city's state of emergency related to COVID-19. It is identical to the past two that Council has approved with one exception. In light of the recent, as in a couple minutes ago, changes regarding the city's contracting procedures, we've decided that we no longer need to delegate all contracts to the city manager for signature. And so we will continue the normal process of routing appropriate contracts to council. We still have emergency procurement services authorized in case that becomes necessary, but we're no longer delegating signature authority to the city manager. So the city's existing state of emergency expires at the end of this month at noon on June 30th. This extension will extend it for another month, so that it will expire 12 p.m. on July 31st, 2020. I can answer any questions.
Any questions from council or a motion?
And to clarify, Council President Goodhouse, and that just extends with the emergency declaration, just extends all the waiving of late fees and all the different things we put in place as well. Those are all.
Correct, right. So late fees is the only one that is tied specifically to this resolution. Subsequent actions have generally had their own expiration date, whether that be the end of December or otherwise. So it's the late fees that are tied to this extension.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So, okay. I
Yeah,
move to
they're all-
approve. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, they're all longer than this.
Okay. I move to approve resolution number 20-38.
Counselor Newton, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution 20-38, a resolution of the City of Tigard extending the city's emergency declaration related to COVID-19.
City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 20-38 is adopted unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to receive a briefing on Tigard Streets for People program. Mr. Purdy and Mr. Roth.
Good evening, Council. Dave, shall I introduce us and then hand off to you?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Lloyd? Thanks.
Okay. Again, Lloyd Purdy, the Economic Development Manager for the City of Tigard. I'm here with Dave Roth, our Senior Transportation Planner, and he's going to lead the presentation, and I have a couple of points where I want to follow up with you. But we are here to talk to you about a pilot project that's being led by the Community Development Department, though it's requiring support and teamwork from all across the city, and you'll hear more about that as well. Dave, go ahead and get us started, please.
Thanks, Lloyd. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen, and hopefully this works without a hitch. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so I'm Dave Roth, Senior Transportation Planner with the City of Tigard, and thanks for the intro, Lloyd. So Lloyd and I are here to talk to you about the Streets for People Share the Street pilot program that we're proposing for the City of Tigard to support a safer reopening of the Tigard community during the COVID crisis. Goals for the program are to support the strategic vision of promoting walkability and connecting neighborhoods and residents to our excellent trail system. The next part is to improve access to trails, activate neighborhoods, and then follow public health recommendations both from the CDC and the state of Oregon. The guiding principles for the program are to provide safe space for residents to recreate and travel while maintaining physical distancing requirements, to connect neighborhoods with Tigard's trail system, to ensure underserved and or marginalized neighborhoods are prioritized, and to link local businesses using the public right-of-way. And Lloyd will speak more to that point later. So this is something that other cities around the nation and internationally are doing right now. And we've modeled our pilot program proposal after some of the cities in the Pacific Northwest, such as Bend, Portland, or Seattle. Closest to home would be Portland, and if anybody's been out in the city of Portland, they've probably seen these green signs out and about. And Portland has implemented this program on about 80 miles of their neighborhood greenway streets. So the idea behind the concept is to install temporary traffic calming measures to create a slower street that's safer for people to walk and bike on, and to provide neighborhood access to the Fano Creek Trail via local and neighborhood streets. The image on the screen is just a sample image of what a traffic control plan would look like for one of these streets. Our proposal for a pilot project would be located right in the heart of Tigard on Johnson Street, Grant Avenue, Brookside Avenue, and Southwest 106th Drive. And these streets, I'll show you a map in a second here, are very frequently used for trail users to connect the missing portion of the Fano Creek Trail right in the center of the city. And further, it would connect the Fano Creek to the Pathfinder Trail network just across Walnut. So here's a map of the proposed project area. And if you can see the yellow highlighted streets, those are the streets that I just mentioned. Those would receive signage that says local access only, and then additional safety signage that looks similar to the graphic that you see in the bottom right-hand portion of the screen. The red dashed line is the connection between the two ends of the Fano Creek Trail that utilize the on-street connection. Now, if any of you have, well, I know many of you have used this trail or do frequently, you'll know that there's a lot of people walking and cycling on Grant and Johnson to make this connection. And we gave them a presentation on the proposal, and they unanimously supported the concept. The next thing we've been working on is to build a list of potential streets throughout the city that could see expansion of the program. We're conducting a GIS equity analysis, and the equity analysis, if I could just speak to that for a moment, is really critical for these types of transportation projects now and into the future. And Council, you adopted the Complete Streets policy last year, and this is a nod to that policy to support our investments equitably. If there is interest in expanding this program after we evaluate the pilot this summer, we'd be looking at we'd be working with our GIS department to look at several different variables, including child population density, minority rate, non-English speaking percentage of population, population density, poverty rate, and so on and so forth by the census block to help prioritize what streets would receive these treatments to support marginalized members of our community. The other piece of work we've been managing is to develop a traffic plan in coordination with Public Works, Streets, and Engineering. And we've also developed a very detailed engagement and communications plan where we've brought on a consultant to help us execute on this plan to really do a thorough job of reaching out to the community through social media, through our Engage Tigard website, and do some follow-up surveys and even intercept surveys of trail users and neighbors to hear feedback from them. This is the map that we're using to build our equity analysis of potential program expansion. And what we've done for this base map is just to identify some of the key trails. The next step would be to layer in the equity analysis that I was speaking about and the different variables by census tract that we'd be looking at. I'm going to hand it over to Lloyd to speak to the business aspect of the program.
Thank you, Dave. Council, this is just one slide to show you that we are trying to connect the dots, so to speak. A couple of meetings ago, you passed a resolution that created a zero-fee right-of-way permit access for businesses that want to expand into the public right-of-way to help them restart their business while helping customers follow social distancing rules. And we think there's an opportunity to connect these open streets to certainly to nodes and nexuses and places where that's happening, if it's happening with a certain amount of density and consistency. The picture below is, in fact, Bridgeport Village. They were the first set of businesses that I know of that took us up on the offer, which was both our relaxing of the rules, the land use rules that allow firms to operate outside, and as well as the right-of-way permit that you authorized. So again, the hope is that we can not just connect neighborhoods to trails, but eventually connect neighborhoods and neighbors to places that they can walk or bike to shop, to dine, to be part of the economy. Go ahead, Dave.
All right. Thanks, Lloyd. So I already mentioned the engagement strategy, and I'll just run through these points again. So we're setting up a website. We're preparing postcards to send to the residents on the streets that would be affected by the pilot project, online and intercept surveys, and then a social media strategy to go along with it. So with that, I would open it up to any questions or feedback. And again, we're looking for your support and approval for the pilot project right now.
Yeah, Council, I have one more point to make. Pardon me for interrupting. At our last council meeting, I had the honor of presenting to you content about the proposed strategic vision and the updated strategic plan. And I heard during that conversation with you a great deal of focus on not just equity, but also access and walkability. And I knew this presentation was coming this week. I knew we'd be able to show you that this, in fact, is a project that implements a lot of what the current strategic vision and the next generation of that are trying to do. This creates access for neighborhoods. It will be focused on neighborhoods where equity is an important lens. So that's just a connection I wanted to provide for you all. I'm done now.
Thank you, Mr. Purdy. Who's got questions or comments? That's a great picture of me. Look at that.
Mine's off too. Sorry. It froze up.
Everything's frozen. Council President Goodhouse. Yeah, I'm the liaison for the TTAC, and they loved the idea and the thought, and even in past this pilot part, they'll take a look at other areas, and just talking with the residents and being with our tagline being the most walkable city. I think this is great. I love the if down the road it's not possible, but I'd love to see some way that we had neighborhood markets or something that people could go to. You start getting it more walkable, but then find ways to get in neighborhood markets. That's the biggest thing I hear from people is, you know, they love living in Tigard, but you know, they love to walk, but then also is there a place they can walk, they can get, you know, some of the daily groceries or get something they want to go to. So I don't know if we can necessarily do that. That might be hard, but this might be also a step in the right direction and make it so people can walk and do a lot of their stuff they need to do, their daily activities that way. But I appreciate staff looking outside the box for this one and finding ways to make it a more active community.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Newton?
This is Councilor Newton, and I actually live on 106th Drive, and my dining room window overlooks the street, and I see a lot of folks walking up and down 106th Drive on a regular basis. And I will tell you, we don't have a lot of traffic, and I wonder if that's one of the reasons that people walk the street, because I can be out there with my little 3.5-year-old great niece for half an hour, 45 minutes in an afternoon, no cars go by. We do get a lot of traffic when school's in session, and now that school's not in, you know, at 3:20, a lot of cars use 106th Drive as a cut through, but that's going to happen when you live near a school. So I also walk Johnson to downtown Tigard, the same thing, not a lot of traffic there. Grant feels unsafe to me, so you know, the sidewalks there are inconsistent, and there is a lot more traffic on Grant. But I would just say that, you know, I think, again, one of the reasons people use 106th Drive is there not a lot of traffic. The other thing I will comment on is since we're getting a lot more folks walking, if you don't get your garbage back from the curb on garbage day early in the morning, people use your garbage can for their little dog bag. So noticing that a little more, we don't get a lot of speeding or anything. Sometimes FedEx and UPS pick it up a little, but you know, I think it's great to encourage walking in the community. And I don't know, it may be that we need to do more, but quite frankly, I don't know right now that we need to do much to deter automobiles, because they just don't seem to use it, other than, as I said, during that school time. And I am a little bit concerned about that, because there are kids walking home from school, and some of the parents can come through here pretty quickly. So that's the only conflict I see. But generally, again, I think I saw a senior citizen walking group this morning, and they were walking down the middle of the street. social distancing, and there were no cars. So again, I would just offer those observations.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, anything?
No, great idea. It's very minimal cost, so I'm all in favor.
Councillor Lube?
No, I'm just excited to see, what the program shows and the potential that it could have across the city. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Council President Goodhouse, any follow-up?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that presentation and look forward to the results.
Yeah, we're happy to come back to share. So
excellent.
Thanks.
All right, item number 12 on the agenda is to continue our discussion on racial justice and city action. City Manager Wine, you want to start the conversation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Marty Wine. I'm your city manager. So let's see. We didn't prepare an agenda item summary for this item, and we've set aside at least 45 minutes on this agenda and your next two agendas, and I'm sure that there's more time that you'll want to have so that you can discuss your next steps for city actions and racial equity. Last week, we heard from you a continued wish to have community dialogues and continued listening sessions to be hearing from the community as you have been. We know that you've heard hundreds of comments and folks have been asking you questions. So I and leadership team have two offerings, just some brief comments to get started. You heard from the mayor earlier tonight. I want you to just know a little bit of and be aware of the thinking that's going on the administrative side, and then we'd like for you to continue this discussion and get your guidance about thoughts that you have about next steps, your preferred next steps. So two parts to my opening comments. One is I just want to make sure that you have an update about actions that we've taken, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of these, but I feel like they're worth noting in response to comments that you've heard over the last weeks related to law enforcement practices and providing information. You all know that we launched a website, Tigard on the Tigard website, Community for All. We continue to update that website with the questions and answers that you've been hearing. That reflects the many things that people have been curious about related to police practices, all the correspondence that you've seen from the community. So we're trying to keep that up to date, and that's really just like a first information loop that we're trying to keep current. I also want you to be aware that based on questions and an invitation from Tigard-Tualatin School District, a conversation's been initiated with the administration at Tigard-Tualatin School District and staff, and maybe the city of Tualatin. I'm getting started in contact with the city of Tualatin. The question there is, what should the future and the presence and the experience be of our school resource officers in the schools? And I know that question is framed broadly, and I think the idea is to hear from students and families about that experience. The district has offered facilitation services and help with finding someone who can help us have that conversation to bring people together. So at the moment, we're designing a thoughtful community conversation together with students and families and invitations. And my hope is that within a month, we will be able to have that conversation ready for everybody's participation. I think the goal is to hear as many voices in a way that will shape the future of any decisions that are made about school resource officers. And then the only other set of points I wanted you to be aware about is I hope to just share with you, and I know that our directors, Dana Bennett, Toby LaFrance, may also have some brief comments about ways that your leadership team is talking about and thinking about making change. We've had a series of conversations as the director group and have been engaged in listening sessions with our staff about and I'm gonna put the caveat up there up front, is that I'm gonna be calling this an action plan to become an anti-racist organization. But to call it an action plan at this point would be premature. It seems somewhat out of order to be doing that. So since the beginning of June, we've focused on two things, and one is to acknowledge that we must be unaware of the systemic racism and the things that need to change and our need to listen and learn. And two is that we need to make change in the way we as a city act and behave as an organization if we're going to become a place that wants to break down institutional racism. So there's work that we acknowledge as an organization that we need to do. And we realize that as people who are a part of the system that is perpetuating institutional racism, we are not going to know everything or have the best ideas for developing that plan. So, but we are beginning. So we have a list of these beginning ideas of things we can do that build from the staff listening sessions that we've had, also the comments that you've received, and ideas and statements that you've shared so far. And also have made commitments to hear from the community. And we're coming up with a list of things that we can do now and a list of things that we can do as an organization, and they span all city services. So even though I'm calling it an anti-racism action plan, in truth, it's not really even a plan yet. It's more of a set of ideas that's going to change based on the feedback we get. Right now, the structure of this plan is to name what it is we're solving for, and that is that the city will become an anti-racist organization committed to anti-racism, to keep conversations and listening with staff going to inform our actions, name what it is that we need to do individually and collectively to make change. And some of the actions we've talked about taking now are designed to make our services more equitable. And the first step with that is to get some help to, I'm going to call it audit or examine or evaluate all of our services and we say equity lens, but we need to develop one to look at how our services are delivered now and how we can deliver them in a more equitable way. And then, as the mayor mentioned, we're also talking about societally the systems that we operate in, so including transportation and housing and health and the law and advocacy, and examine what the city's role is in those systems, and then what we can do to change how we as an organization act and behave to undo racism. And then the last part of that action plan looks like personal pledges and commitments by the leadership team about what we will do and how we'll say what we're saying and how we'll learn more. So one of our first steps is going to be with engaging with an organization like the Center for Equity and Inclusion to ask for more support, more help with those facilitated conversations, with those trainings, with developing an equity lens. And you can imagine the breadth of city services that we would need to review, so we need to get started. And then all of this is designed to, come up with longer term ways that we can undo the systemic equities that are built into what we do. So I wanted you to know that thinking and the way we're designing this is starting. And I mentioned that Toby and Dana are here. They have maybe some examples or some other brief comments just to let you know about the way the leadership team is thinking about how we're going forward. And after our comments, I think the mayor's got some stuff to say, and we want to hear your discussion also. So Dana, Toby, do you have anything else you want to open with?
Hi, this is Dana. I'll go first if you don't mind. Dana Bennett, I'm the Human Resources Director at the City of Taggart. Mayor and Council, nice to see you this evening. I just want to take a moment to help demonstrate some of the work that we have been doing. I'll share some near-term ideas that are specifically occurring and being initiated in my department. And they're early things that we can do while the leadership team is learning, listening, and building an equity lens that we'll be able to apply to our services and systems. So to further enhance our recruitment efforts, you may know that we have been for about a year and a half now, including a diversity, equity, and inclusion question in every process for Tigard. So what we'd like to do is ramp that effort up make those questions more specific, establish a pass-fail point on those questions to ensure that we're hiring people who share our commitment to dismantling racism in city policies, processes, procedures, and systems. Additionally, although we currently monitored the demographic outcomes of city recruitments, there's more we can do. We're planning to set a metric for the percentage of diverse qualified candidates in any given recruitment pool. And if a job doesn't meet that metric, then we'll continue to extend the job posting for an additional week and do additional focused outreach recruitment by the HR department as well as the hiring department. We're also re-examining how we conduct hiring processes, looking for ways to increase transparency, consider lived experience when evaluating qualifications, and improve the customer experience in general for Tigard, folks going through the Tigard recruitment process. The leadership team is fully committed to doing racial equity work, and we're looking for things we can do now while we learn more and hear from those impacted in our community and build an equity lens for our city to help us move to the next phase of this work. This will be an ongoing effort, and we look forward to engaging in it and seeing the results for our community over time. That's all for my comments at the moment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Toby LaFrance, Finance and Information Services Director. I would like to echo much of what Marty was saying in that we've had a robust discussion at leadership team about how to approach making Tigard an anti-racist organization without institutional racism. It's involved a great deal of reflection on the part of the leadership team, vulnerability on the part of the leadership team, and having those discussions. I know for myself, we're in different places, and for myself, I'm in a place where I feel like I need to learn a lot more about how and get tools so I can help identify institutional racism within the organization so that we can take actions. And so we are looking at both some long-term solutions, such as what Marty was discussing, where we'll bring in some outside help to help provide us with some of those tools, some of the training, helping us identify areas where we can make a substantial difference in institutional racism within the city of Tigard. And we're also looking at near-term examples. Ms. Bennett just provided one such example in her department. Another area that within my department, I sourced from throughout the department for ideas that we could be implementing soon while we're waiting for this larger and more in-depth audit of our services. One example actually would be similar to part of what you were talking about earlier this evening with the city's contracting process. The construction contracts within the city of Tigard typically makes up somewhere between 20% to a third of the city's budget. This is an area where that is ripe for ensuring that the city of Tigard is awarding contracts to women and minority-owned businesses in a way that is representative of the community in the city of Tigard, and in a way that helps to reduce institutional racism. There are some things as simple as all of our RFPs have a background on the city, and that talks about demographics, it talks about the city's values, our strategic initiatives, and in there we can include an equity statement. We can start partnering with and sponsoring minority contracting organizations like Latino Build Network, Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs, Professional Business Development Group, National Association of Minority Contractors for Oregon. And in working with those networks, what we can start to do is measure our outreach to women and minority-owned businesses for our bids, our RFPs. We can be doing outreach with them. We can find out who's bidding on our contracts from women and minority-owned businesses, and ultimately who's getting contract awards. And as we're doing those awards, be able to present this information to council. and the local contract review board. So that's another place where we can make some changes and educate ourselves. There's a whole list of examples that all the departments have been pulling together. What you've heard tonight are just two such examples.
So those are some opening comments. I hope the council can now have your discussion about preferred next steps that you have in mind.
Okay, who would like to go first? I had outlined this, but I'll do it again for the public, that one of the things I think all of us are that are working on this are struggling with, how do we move forward when we've gotten an unprecedented number of pieces of feedback from the community. There's national discussion, there are multiple local and national campaigns with suggested best practices. How do we take all of that information and move it into some sort of an action plan? And I had originally, I think, challenged the community to provide feedback about how we should do that. And I think I shared last week, we didn't really get a lot of like how we should do it other than maybe around the SRO discussion. And that's already moving forward. So what and council, I'm open to, if you give me feedback and think this is not a great plan, I'm okay with that. But what I would like to do is work with the city manager over, and probably the police chief and maybe some other department heads over the next couple of weeks, so that when we come back to our next discussion, we actually have maybe a framework, like an initial framework for what needs to be evaluated. I was just, as we've been having this conversation, I've been thinking about this all day, and I guess what I could do is give you an example of the kinds of things I'm talking about in the category of police. So I'm again, this is just a sample of what we might put together, or what I might work with the city manager and others on over the next couple weeks. Would be for police, I have a category of accountability and transparency. So that includes things like body cameras, citizen oversight, access to misconduct investigation results, public access to that, qualified immunity, stuff like that. Things on that front that we might be advocating for in the future would be, some change around whether an arbitrator in a termination has the right to reinstate an officer, for example. That might be something that we would say, you know what, that's just not, I think we're seeing situations where that's not been a great thing. So just that kind of a framework. And then I've got a category of use of force. So on that, some of it we've already done, but I think there needs to be more discussion about the use of force continuum versus Graham versus Connor. Another major issue, and I haven't even gotten to talk to the police chief about this yet, but I did talk with the city manager about this as I really reflected on and had a sort of profound change in my own thinking after watching the situation that unfolded in Atlanta. What is that, almost a week and a half ago? And just how we probably need to evaluate the entire way that we're approaching, from a law enforcement perspective, we're approaching the concept, and this may be foreign to all of you, but we don't really give police officers sort of a retreat or a backing down option once they've made a decision to arrest someone, for example. The question is not whether they're going to be arrested, it's just how much force are you going to use to get them arrested? And it's sort of like a we will always win approach. And I think I think some of what our community is asking for, and they may not, many members of the public, if they've not been through police training, may not know that's you know, one of the core issues that's at play there in that situation that occurred. So, you know, in use of force, I've got those kinds of things, and then I think there's questions about deployment of resources, which includes SROs, mental health, homeless, non-police, like some option for non-police response to all these social issues and mental health types of calls, or even some of these neighborhood disputes where it's like, you know, that's not a crime. You know, like the guy with the teddy bear in the window that someone else didn't like, or it wasn't a teddy bear. I forget what the story was, but oh, it was a monkey. Someone didn't like someone's stuffed animal monkey up with their 6 or 7 other animals. I mean, that's not a police call in my mind. That's like a neighborhood issue that, you know, potentially may need to be solved. But our approach of sending law enforcement to every single one of those is, you know, probably needs to be fundamentally reevaluated. So I'm laying this out there not to give you like these are just the ideas, but that's the kind of framework going sort of department by department that I'm offering to try to take the collective information that we've gotten and try to make it into something as a first draft, probably working and trying to meld it with the work the city staff has done as well. So I'll give that as a jumping off point. Would that be something that council would like me to try to work with the city manager and staff on?
Yes.
Councilor Lube or Councilor Lube?
Yeah, I think that's exactly sort of the direction that my head is going. We have all of these different buckets of areas in which we need to evaluate or discuss. And I think having these topics to be able to have discussion groups around for our community to talk about how we want to approach these issues is really important. And to be as specific as possible, you know, what issue or what question we're trying to answer with each of the groups is important. I think the only other thing that I would add to that is a lot of the feedback that we're getting is talking about investing in other areas. And I'd like to see us maybe get some clear information together on how, as a city, we're investing in the community issues as we're talking about just general issues such as affordable housing, food insecurity, mental health program. I know currently we're not in the business of providing mental health resources. It's something on Washington County, but just helpful information such as that. What is the city doing for affordable housing, and talk about the different ways that we're doing it. And if we can attach monetary value, I think that would be really helpful to give that perspective, so we can look to see, you know, what we're doing and how we can continue to invest in our community, because I think it's an important overall picture for our community, and not just attacking a specific area, but continuing to look at all of this. And I certainly don't think we are going to be solving this, but I think we are moving in the right direction to be able to assist our community members to live in the kind of place that we want everyone to feel safe and welcome, where they can thrive.
So, Councilor Lube, I really appreciate what you said, and I think it's good to clarify. I'm just trying to get, like, what are even the topics? Like, what is all the stuff we need to even, like, work through? And each one of these things represents potentially a bunch of community dialogue, potentially a bunch of work. So I'm just thinking about an effort to try to get it all in one place where we can say, okay, this is at least the first set of stuff we need to tackle.
Yes, no, I agree. I think it's wide and vast, and I think having as many specific areas as possible that we can talk about and which way to go is the way that I think it's important for the city to move forward. And I would just say, you know, once we get to the point of being able to have these discussions, just having them in a wide variety of formats. I know the Facebook Live events are working for us right now because of I think they're good for what we can do, as interactive as possible, but you know, maybe as we continue to move into phase 2, looking at options for having in-person meetings, maybe outdoors because the weather is nice. Today was a little hot maybe for some people, but ways to be able to meet in person, because I think these are important discussions to have in person and have a wide variety, a diverse member of our community there for those discussions.
Councillor Anderson, thoughts on my proposal or other things?
Well, I think it's a grand proposal. I think it would take a lot of your time. I'm thinking working with staff. Obviously, they have some very thoughtful conversations going on, but I would almost see a dedicated staff member or two to compile all this information that we've been gathering. So that's my question: who is actually going to be the resource for this?
Well, as far as just to clarify on the actual input and communication we've been receiving, I asked pretty early on that we make sure that we are cataloging and categorizing all of the feedback we've been getting so that we can, we have it in one place, at least what we've gotten in written form. So City Manager Wine can comment more about how that's going.
My only comment about that is that because we've been using communication channels for you to be hearing and the correspondence that council currently gets, we've had a partnership between our communications manager and our office, making sure that's all in one place. So we're consolidating it, but at the moment we're treating that as communication. And I think that what's being asked for here is also reconsideration of priorities for funding and for operations and changing what we're doing. So it's probably a good idea. Yes, staff resources are going to be needed to devote to this.
Council President Goodhouse or Councillor Newton?
Yeah, so Council President Goodhouse. So I agree with everything that's being said. I love the idea of more outreach, more interacting with community, figuring out what we may be missing or what maybe want to be seen from the community or thoughts. But there's also another approach I have that hasn't been mentioned, and the council's had some conversations as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've had some, different either seminars or things we've gone to. Just kind of a bit of a reflection. I'll talk about myself for a moment. One of the things, really being in office and going to different events or being part of seminars like that or going to the National League of Cities is you get exposed to a lot of things you wouldn't normally get exposed to. I know that Council Mill, we've had some people comment that, Tigard's not racist or what really is racism or really what is institutional racism? What is that? And I think sometimes in order to really solve or fix a problem or address a problem head on, you have to really know what the problem is and understand it. And one of the great things that at the National League of Cities conferences, they have the red line kind of presentation. It kind of goes back and shows with a bunch of these big panels. It shows back decades ago when mortgages used to draw a red line and they went loan in areas. And if you take a look at those areas now, you get an idea of those areas still are impoverished or they might not have the same advantages as other areas. Or I was just, last week we had a National League of Cities conference and they were talking about during part of that, about how still different areas aren't given to communities, aren't given money or businesses aren't lended money because people state, well, people don't go there or so not the same advantages. So I'd like to look at an education aspect. I don't know as far as getting those panels and stuff like that with COVID being able to get into communities, but if we did some kind of a campaign with the city or something where just an educational process of almost whether it be social media or mailings or things as to educate as far as why there is a difference and what is an institutional racism and why there is a difference, because a lot of times if people haven't been exposed to this or they've lived in the same area or they haven't been to these different outlets, a lot of people may not understand what it is and they may just hear some of these buzzwords online or social media or from the news. And so I really would like to see a whole educational portion being put in place. So we kind of almost tackle that part where we don't have people questioning whether or not there's a problem, but there's more of an understanding of what is out there and why there's a differences. And it's not something that people have done, but it's just what's been in place for the decades or longer that have created these situations, and why there is a difference. And just maybe even just sometimes to share some of these things. I was on a call last week where a member of an organization who's the CEO was talking about how he's got, a very well educated, high income earner, CEO of an organization, but when he gets into an elevator and he's by himself and someone gets in the elevator, it can be only between his word and the other person's word, and he could lose his whole life, his livelihood, his reputation, just because someone make a comment that he did something on the elevator and his word's not being taken and the other person's word over him. There's a lot of things that people don't experience day in, day out and don't realize it still happens. So we're not in the ages of different drinking fountains or places people being allowed into it, but I think the education part is a huge part that we, I think as a city, it would be not only our responsibility, but our task to really work on that as well.
All right, I made a note of that. I really like your public education campaign idea, particularly in response to the 10 to probably 5 to 10% of emails that we get that say Tigard isn't racist. I don't see any racism here, and what they're I think saying is they don't see overt racism, but I don't even think they know what's below the surface sometimes. So that I made a specific note about that, so I'll add that to my my draft framework. Councillor Newton.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one last comment. Sorry, you made me think. The only way to tackle a problem is to understand the problem, and if we're not on the page of people understanding it, then we can't really solve a problem until we understand it and people know about it.
All right. We were going to Councillor Newton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'm really grateful that people are talking to us. I'm really encouraged that people are taking the time to let us know what their experiences are. I'm learning a lot, and grateful that people are willing to share their opinions. I think that you've captured, I made some notes about the sort of the main categories that we're hearing about around police services. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I did around the education component. I listened to the webinar this morning on how the police training in our state works, and that was very informative for me. They've made changes in the last 3 years to move to 21st century policing, but that means we've got some folks that in our state that were trained earlier, and it was helpful for me to learn how that works and what a big part our field training officer, our city's training plays. So I want to hear everything I can. I want to learn everything I can about what people are experiencing. I think your categorization, Mr. Mayor, will help us get some topics that we can start making some movement on and have some discussions with the community on. For example, SROs and body cams, and what does our community want to see around those. But I also appreciate what Councillor Lube said about moving forward on some of the other things that we're involved in, mental health, affordable housing. And I'm interested not only in sharing with folks about what we do, but how do the affordable housing programs we have in place work for them, or do they, or don't they, or what can we learn from our conversation about some of the other services we provide that we're missing, that impact them because of the unequal treatment that we may not be aware of. So I think it's important to keep the communication open. I would be supportive of a very robust communication plan. Early on, we talked about maybe getting to the parks, doing some things where we have a little bit more in person with COVID in mind dialogue. You learn a lot from people when you're able to have a real conversation with them. So as we move forward on all these topics, I would really like to try to have as the most robust ongoing conversations we can with the community, because I think there are things out there around the services we provide that we may not be aware of, that we do need to hear about. And again, I'm just grateful that people are willing to share, and I'm definitely willing to listen and learn. I think we have a lot of work to do, but I think with the community's support and the community's involvement, we can make some changes that will make a difference. So I support the general direction you're going, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And Councillor Anderson, I think it was you who said that sounds like a lot of work. Luckily, I'm going to be on vacation for 2 weeks starting Friday, so I'm going to have a lot of time to think.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if
we all will.
Has any comments? Emilio?
What was that?
I wonder if,
yeah, you know what, I meant to do that earlier, Councillor Newton. I'm sorry. Mr. Calderon, Youth Councillor Calderon? Sorry.
Yeah. First, I would like to thank you for giving me a chance to speak. What I believe that the council is doing is totally correct. You guys are going in the totally correct direction by going out in the community and asking them what they would want to do. And I believe that we are doing what's right. But what I would like to see soon is more change and actually get something passed and actually get something done within the near future to show the community that we are committed. And even though we are having these discussions, I think that it would mean a lot to the community if we were able to show them something physical that we've done already. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything big. I believe that in council mail, I've been seeing stuff that is asking about having a form that officers have to complete in a situation where they use force, which is something I would totally be behind, by asking them just to do a single piece of paperwork that would just be like, why did you use force? Why did you use force? Did you feel threatened? And all that stuff, as well as perceived race of the person they used it against, in order to see if they have racial bias or anything, and just to see how Taggart police officers are using force against the community, even though it's not a big problem. I believe it was only 57 times in 2019. And even though it's not a big issue in Tigard, I still believe that it's important to get something small like that done. And that is something I would hope to see the city council do.
So, Emilio, just so you know, the police chief, the city has already taken some immediate actions, and the police chief and I can probably brief you on those. But to your point, we probably need to be better communicating what it is, even if it is small things that are immediately changing. We need to be communicating those more directly. So thank you for that feedback. Any other thoughts?
No, that's it for now, but thank you so much.
Mayor,
right. Thank you.
Could you, on that note, just in case people are watching or whatever, could you just do a quick highlight of what we have passed and what have done? I mean, I know you mentioned that you were going to talk offline to youth counselor, but could you just mention those real quick for people that may be watching this or watching this later?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that we did almost immediately was the police chief reviewed the 8 can't wait requests and evaluated against those. And based on a conversation she and I had, within, I think it was on the Monday after we had our first Facebook Live event where she and I were on together. After the event, I just said to her, and Emilio, you may not, I don't know how well you know me, but at one time I was a reserve police officer in the city. It was a long time ago, but I've been trained in the old school way of doing some of this stuff. And so I just said to her, why would we not, what we were not, the example is this. We were no longer training people or officers to use what is called choking out, which I explained this in one of the Facebook Live events. It actually has nothing to do with obstructing someone's breathing or airway, but that's gotten all jumbled both in the media and I think in people, in the situations where someone is, like an officer actually is blocking someone's airway, but that's not what was being taught in Oregon. So when I talked with the chief about that, I just said, why would, if we're not teaching it now, why would we just say you can't use that technique? Because some of our officers would have been trained in it, you know, a long time ago. Why not just say you can't use that unless you're in a deadly force situation? And she, you know, by Monday, the next Monday, they'd changed the policy. I mean, it's, so things like that, Council President Goodhouse, those are the kinds of things that are changing rapidly.
Yeah, I just wanted that, rather than kind of, if anyone was watching this, it's good to point those out, that we have implemented things right away and the chief has been on top of things. And as you mentioned, there's some of the things we don't practice anymore, but at least we spelled them out in our documents and everything like that, so it's clear to the public that we don't do those.
Yeah, and I guess I want to reemphasize, since we were just talking about it, there has never been a technique in 20 years in Oregon policing that was teaching officers to prevent people from breathing. So really important. That is not what the technique, that's not a technique. And the police chief kind of pointed that out and discussed it. But I think, to Emilio and Council President Goodhouse's point, let's make sure everybody's clear on what we're even talking about. So that's not how it works, and I won't get into the medical part of it. But anyway, what else do people want to share, or otherwise I will take this task seriously and do my best. I will try to get something out to all of you well before a meeting, at least like by the weekend before the next meeting, so that you can start, you know, beating it up and come to the council meeting with your thoughts and not have to react to it just when you're at the council meeting.
Councilor Newton, really quick, are we also, maybe the city manager addressed this and I missed it, in the next couple of weeks, we're also putting together a plan to begin this outreach, correct? Is that correct?
I'm doing
on the SR.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Marnie.
That's okay. Should I? So,
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. On the school resource officer issue, there will be a joint. We're co-constructing with the school district how that dialogue will look, and I would say, to the question of council outreach, you've all expressed your desire to continue the Spark meetings, which are all getting scheduled, and there's probably an additional design that needs to be done for the outreach that you're looking for. That's not done yet. I can't commit that that's going to be done in a couple of weeks, but I'm hearing that that's something that the council wants. So we'll bring that to you too.
Okay.
City Manager Wine, given how complicated organizing an event like that is, I think right now what we might be struggling with is, you know, what would the content even be for that discussion? I think the council knows that we're going to have and desire to have some sort of pretty significant outreach event that, for example, might be at Cook Park and involve a lot of space, and maybe we should be planning. I guess I would ask that, given the lead time and organization, even if we don't know exactly what we're going to be discussing, we know we're going to need that kind of an event, and perhaps we should, you know, get the logistics prepared now for an early August or a mid-August type of event like that, and we'll have to get the content figured out, is I guess what I would say to that. Councilor Newton, is that kind of what you have in mind a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, we also want to do some more listening, and so we
right.
don't necessarily, I mean, yeah, there could be a topic, but I also think we want, as we're going through and talking about SROs and the other things that we've all identified, we can have some discussions and move on. We need to continue to hear what people want to talk to us about. And so that's the piece. Even if it's a couple of sessions at Cook Park with smaller groups that might want to come, just an opportunities for people to continue to engage with us. Because again, I really want to encourage people to continue to communicate with us. I'm so grateful that they call us, that they FaceTime with us, that they're emailing us. So I just want to make sure we're encouraging that, and so that's what.
I mean, part of what maybe it should look like the first event. Maybe we invite every single person that's given us feedback so far.
Yeah, or maybe there's some people in the community. I don't know. I don't want to lose that as also a goal or a priority, and that's to continue to hear from people and continue to be engaged in conversation.
Yep. No, I think it's a good point. Go ahead. Sorry, City Manager Wine.
Well, I have heard and I acknowledge that theme and intent that the council has. What I can say today is I don't think that from a staff perspective we were thinking about an event or one thing, and this is a continuous dialogue, and today we don't have it designed, but I hear everything that you're saying and your wish for what you want to do.
Thank you.
Council President Goodhouse, one thing, I think I made this suggestion before, and I'll make it again. I know that they're hard, or maybe it's kind of hard to put on, or maybe they're too many, but I think once a month, I still think that's too far apart. If we look at maybe doing events with the councilors or mayor or whatever a little more frequently, maybe we spread it out later on, but that's just something we can think about or not. Just as kind of Councilor Newton's comment as far as just kind of doing more outreaches or getting more involvement with people. The one thing I was just going to add, though, to the list that you're doing there, Mayor, is one thing I've heard from a lot of people. I don't even know how to approach this. I don't know if this is even a city question or something we even handle from the city level. But it's the question is raised of calling the police on someone just because they're a person of color. There's been a lot of discussion of that. There's that whole part of, if it was one race, then someone may not call, but if it's another race, then someone may call the police just because, the color of someone's skin, that people call the police. And that's something that becomes a nuisance from the point of police responding, also being harassment of that person that may just be doing a normal everyday activity, but they're being called, the police are being called on because of the color of skin. And I don't know if there's some kind of I don't know what can be put in place, and that might be a state level or something like that. But if it's considered to be a misdemeanor if you just call this because of and I don't know how you determine it or even how you factor that, but something that's really stopped that process and really changed that behavior.
I'm making a note. Yeah, this is like the person of color describing that their main crime was just being a person of color.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Lube and Councilor Anderson, have you gotten to share, or do you have anything more? I guess, sorry, it's getting late. Councilor Lube, you did share to begin with. Councilor Anderson, do you have anything?
No, I'm just looking forward to see what the staff puts together, and we'll evaluate it as it goes forward.
All right, Councilor Lube, I guess you've been quiet for a while, so I want to check back in with you. What you got?
No, I'm just listening. All the suggestions have been good.
Okay. Well, I won't finish making my note while you guys are all watching. I'll do that later. We'll move on to non-agenda items. I don't think we have any non-agenda items. Administrative report, City Manager Wine.
Council, I do have 5 items on administrative report. I promise. I know that you don't want your meeting to be much longer, but I promise to make these brief. They're things that I think they're important for you to know about. One is, so the 5 things are Washington County CARES funding. Also want to talk to you about phase 2 planning and reopening Tigard. I don't think I have much to say, but I just want to mention Ascension Drive. I want to mention Rotary Plaza and also the citywide report card. So for starters, I just want you to know that on Washington County federal CARES coronavirus relief funding, that funding is beginning to flow to cities from Washington County for our economic assistance programs, and it will also be coming through Clean Water Services for utility assistance programs. So we are in touch with Washington County who the board set up their application process and approved their guidelines about 2 weeks ago. So we're preparing our requests for that funding now. It's a reimbursement process. My hope is that we'll be able to apply to reimburse Tigard for our own local Tigard Cares program, our RAFT program, and also the utility assistance program that we launched. So I think we benefited on the CARES front as the only city that partnered with a CDFI and created a loan program, and that I think turned out to be a good idea. So funds are going to be available to reimburse us for that, and also potentially to set up a revolving loan fund that will continue for Tigard businesses. So mostly I know that out in the world you might be hearing about this. I want you to know that we're on it, that or I don't want you to be concerned that we'll miss anything. I think we're doing what we can to tap into that funding and ask for reimbursement from Washington County. So that's Coronavirus Relief Fund. Also on the coronavirus and response front, all of the departments have been very engaged in putting together their phase 2 plans. I've mentioned these a couple of times, and reopening services in Tigard is moving forward. Let's see, what do I want to say about this? You've already heard, because you heard during council liaison reports that we've been doing a dry run this week. I don't know, a trial run this week about delivering library holds. As we develop plans for phase 2, which in theory, depending on the coronavirus, could happen July 10th or beyond, what we've been trying to do throughout is to make as much as we can still available by phone and online electronically. But these plans that we're putting together are envisioning how we can serve the public on day 1 of phase 2. It will look like a slow remote opening of services with in-person work that will be available by appointment. And so we'll keep in touch with you about how those plans are shaping up. The point of my update to you about this is just to let you know that as we have been doing, we're trying to figure out how to safely and with the health of public and the employees in mind, be ready to serve the public when phase 2 launches. And just for your interest, our meeting on July 7th, we're still planning to be a virtual meeting, which is the next meeting the council will have. And then at the moment, depending on how things go, an in-person meeting may be possible on July 14th, and we'll keep you posted about that. And I mentioned before that that would be an in-person. If it was an in-person meeting, we'd have social distancing and masks, and we'll be figuring some things out. So that's about phase 2 planning. I don't have that much to report on the Ascension Drive front. Council mail, you have been copied through council mail by our city engineer, Lori Thea, about the status that was sent to our neighbors last week, about the meetings that have taken place, the engagement website that we're going to launch, and it's in development. It's just taking a little longer than we planned. We won't move forward on any Ascension Drive changes until the website's up and there's been a feedback loop where additional feedback will be can be offered by neighbors, both the neighbors in the curves and the neighbors who have offered feedback from elsewhere on Ascension Drive. So, okay, that's I think all I have to say about Ascension Drive. Rotary Plaza, last week concerns were raised about how community members can use the Rotary Plaza space, which was designed to be a community gathering space. So it was brought to my attention, thank you Council President Goodhouse, that there was concern and frustration about whether and how vending and serving alcohol could be done in this space. So I want the council to know that we've clarified that there are not restrictions in terms of the ODOT lease. ODOT is the owner of that space. And the recent code changes that you approved allow for selling and serving in the Rotary Plaza. So as of last Thursday, we hope any confusion or concern has been resolved. The community groups who expressed an interest in using the space have been notified about how that works, the permit process to be able to do that, including sales and including the consumption of alcohol. I think that the ODOT restrictions that have been referenced were an evolving understanding from a couple of years ago and an event that I think we've cleared that up. So we know that that space can be used. We know that everything that we do there needs to be separated from the trail, and the trail can't be blocked. But I want you to know that best I know that the way is clear for the plaza to be used. Okay, and then let's see, finally, my last item on administrator report is an update about the citywide report card. Here's the status. You had asked, and you have a council goal related to updating the citywide report card, and we're working on an update now. We continue to try to evolve the report card, and we're trying to frame it around the refreshed strategic plan vision around equity and access and healthy and walkable. So our goal is to tell the story of that vision, and there might be some new measures that we're trying to figure out. And throughout what we've been trying to do with the report card is figure out what we collect data on and can measure, and then also what's most relevant to the community that they'll be interested and care about related to what the city's doing. So there will be some new measures. There will be some measures from the previous report card. And then on the back of the report card, we're gonna begin to talk about everything that you just talked about for the last half hour, highlighting the impact of COVID-19 programs, the statement from the mayor, what we've heard about from the performance audit, and where we're headed with racial equity efforts. So I think our goal is to be able to roll out the next version of the report card in mid-July. Because of the publication of Tigard Life, which has been shifting, we're going to probably make a launch of the next version of the report card in our utility bills. So that's all I've got on administrative report tonight. And if you have questions for me about anything in that regard, or
what do you think the timing is on the report card?
We're aiming for mid-July, July 15th.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And it takes some time to collect the data, and we're trying to continue to refine the measures so that we know that they're meaningful.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted
yes.
to compliment the staff. I got the I still get a mailed utility bill, even though it comes out automatically. And there was the information about the utility assistance programs. And I thought that insert was good. So I just wanted to compliment staff on that. It had the English and Spanish version, and it was well done, I thought. So thank you for that.
Thanks. I'll pass.
President Goodhouse, I do have a question. I thought Councilor Newton was maybe going to say it. How many people get their utility bill electronically? And if we're looking at inserting, are we missing half the population?
I will say that I got mine electronically, and that was attached in the file. I didn't have to log in; like it was attached at the bottom of it. I was pleased by that.
Can we? So on that note, then I know that when I sign in online to go pay my utility bill, that before we've had in the past where you can kind of have a landing thing that pops up. Is there a way for I think it kind of overrides it before you can access anything else. Is there a way to have that report card pop up for 3 seconds and the ability to click on that and go look at it first?
I will check. Right offhand, I don't know, but I will check.
I think some other thing we did that where it popped up with something first for a couple of seconds and then it allowed you to go on forward.
All right. Any other questions or comments for the city manager? All right. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Council President Goodhouse, I move for adjournment.
Councilor Lube, I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Councilor Lube,
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.